Okay, and we're going to go into, yeah, you can see our screen, yeah? Yeah, can you see our screen?
Yes.
Okay, is honesty the best policy? Right. Okay.
I'll show you what it is.
Jeffrey Friedman wants to be the presenter as well. Okay, so, just put the thing on. Oh, they've got a special thing for that. Okay, so Arnie, all you need to do is go down with this.
Okay, well you say you hang around.
No, you've got to be, it's got to be doing the thing. No, you've got to stay with it. No, otherwise I've got to follow what you say.
Okay. Oh, I have to move it.
Yeah, you have to move it, otherwise, you know, it's not
Right.
realistic.
Jeff Fred.
Okay, so can you hear us all? We're ready whenever you are. Yeah, it's just you got it like that.
So where's the picture?
You don't have to see. You've got to concentrate on that. You can see the pictures if you want to see the pictures as well. I think the way you do that is like that. And it comes over here, so that gets out of the way.
Okay, so they can see us. We're not.
Yeah, they can see us. They can see you.
Right.
Yeah?
Okay, Nikki, I thought you were away today or something.
You know what? My meeting finished, so I'm here.
Oh, okay. Very good. Very good.
I'm gonna turn off my screen now in a minute.
Okay. Okay. And then just click on here.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I see the text. So,
Okay.
good.
Right. And then they'll see all the
People who are sort of not on the microphone. I hope that Alan Lipschultz and Dave Baum and Jeff Fredman can actually hear us.
I can hear you.
Good. All right.
Okay.
So I think
Go ahead.
we got a lot of positive feedback last week. I think there might still be some more people who are joining, but it is after 12. And then it's up to you, Arnie, if you want to wait 3 or 4 minutes more. But I want to welcome the people who are here. And again, if you have any issues, certainly enter them in the chat. If you have any questions that you want to ask about during a period when Rabbi Bender hasn't asked for questions, just type them in the chat. We'll monitor that. And I appreciate the feedback we've been getting along the way. And I'm glad we're connected again.
Okay.
Oh, I'm on my iPad.
That's why you're from California, is that
Okay, so we're ready to start here. If you're ready there.
All right, so why don't we go for it? I'm going to mute everybody, and then you guys you'll start.
Okay. All right. Unmuted.
Here we go. I muted everybody, but I meant to unmute you. Go.
Okay. All right. So this idea of teaching is honesty the best policy. This came up. I work with the elderly, and in one of our staff meetings, not related to the synagogue work that I do, in one of our staff meetings, the idea came up, or we had a discussion on the topic: what do we say to an elderly person in a particular situation? How do we relate to the family? How truthful do we have to be? How direct? We don't certainly want to tell a lie. On the other hand, how direct do we need to be to a person? So I decided that I wanted to see how our sages dealt with this subject of being honest. On one hand, direct honesty, and on the other hand, dealing with, do we say a lie? Can we actually lie in a particular situation? And I found some, what I think were very, very interesting stories that I believe that we can all relate to. So I'd like you to take a look at the first text, which is in front of you. Also, a number of different interesting categories or subjects within the heading is honesty the best policy. So we are all familiar with Pirkei Avot, and here is a quote from the first chapter of Pirkei Avot. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel there, on three things the world stands. There are three pillars of the world. Rabbi Gamliel says the world stands on truth, law, justice, and peace. Okay, Deen can be either translated as law or justice. And it's interesting to note that the first thing that Rabbi Gamliel talks about Deen, truth, and peace. So Rabbi Gamliel lived, he was the president of the Sanhedrin immediately after the Bar Kokhba revolt. And we learn from this saying that without truth, you cannot have justice, law, or peace. We go to the next source, and it says, you should not testify falsely against your neighbor. Okay, so that's pretty clear. Again, it's pretty clear, I think, what this has to say. And we know that if you are in a court of law and you're sworn to give a testimony under oath, that of course you must tell the truth, right? You're talking. We say you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And if you lie, of course, then you can be punished by perjury. But before we look at the next source, where it says the law of the land is the law, I'd like to ask a question. And if someone would then be unmuted and would like to respond, have a comment, please do so. So the question is a Jew obligated to take part in the secular justice system, absolute, or are there instances where Jewish law overrides civil law? Okay? What's my question? If we look at the next source in the book of Deuteronomy, it says, Al-pi shnayim edim o shlosha edim yumat hamet lo yomut al-pi ed echad. So that means that in order for capital punishment, we won't get into the details of capital punishment in Jewish law, but according to at least one aspect of the Jewish law, if there are not two or at least three witnesses who can give testimony, then capital punishment cannot take place. But what happens if a Jew is the sole witness to a murder and he has to testify, he's asked to testify in an American court of law, and if the accused is then found guilty, he would receive the death penalty. But according to the Jewish source that we just read, that you require two witnesses for a Jew to testify in order to convict a criminal in a capital case. So the question comes up, should the witness take the stand? Does he may be forced to take the stand, but is this against Jewish law? Okay, so that's the question that is being asked here. And then the next source is a Talmudic source, and there are actually four sources. I only brought in one from Masechet Nedarim, and it says, Dina de Malchuta Dina. That is, the law of the land is the law. And this goes back actually to a Talmudic scholar named Shmuel in the 3rd century, where Jews lived in a foreign country. Jews were not, they did, now in the 3rd century, there's no land of Israel where we are in the Shilton, we are the leaders of the land, and therefore the rabbis had to deal with the reality of living in Babylonia or wherever they may be, and they concluded Dina de Malchuta Dina, that the answer is in the Talmud that the law of the land is the law, that you must testify truthfully, that a witness must give full testimony, and of course there is the understanding that someone may forget some details, but lying, of course, is not acceptable. Okay, perhaps someone has a comment before we go on to the next topic of honesty in business negotiations. How do we unmute if somebody wants to be?
Maybe I'll try and mute.
Okay. So if someone would like to unmute for a moment and open discussion on the first topic of personal integrity. If not, we will go on. Okay. Okay. So now, honesty in business negotiations. This is a Mishnah that we go on to the next. Okay. All right. Hanoseva notain bedvarim bilvad. Someone, two people shake, right? Handshake. They solidify a deal, but it was all verbal. Maybe they were talking on Shabbat, or who knows what. They weren't in a position at that moment to sign a document. Okay. So they concluded by speaking, man must stand by his word. That even if you didn't sign a document in a particular time, that still is considered a formal conclusion of a business negotiation. It reminds me of the scene in the movie Casablanca, where we don't, of course, if you've never seen the movie Casablanca, you don't know what Humphrey Bogart is negotiating at that moment, but he wants to sell his cafe called the Rick's Cafe American, and he goes to Cindy Greenstreet in the Blue Parrot to sell his cafe, and they shake hands and solidify the deal. And there was no document signed at that time. Humphrey Bogart explains he didn't have time to go through all that, but he sells his cafe, and that's basically what the rabbis are saying here. Although I'm not sure that if they saw the movie Casablanca before they came up with this Mishnah. But basically, one, if you say something in your heart, if you what you say verbally, that's the deal. And even if you say it in your heart, the next text is taken from it's a psalm from the book of Psalms. It says, "The dover emet yovaho," he who speaks the truth in his heart. And now we have a nice Talmudic story about some rabbi. I don't know if you ever heard this name before, a Rav Safra. Is that name familiar to anybody in Rockville? So this story is a story about Rav Safra, perhaps a descendant, or I should say ascendant of Rav Safra of Bnei Yisrael. So this is the story.
He's always a guy, just so you know. He's most certainly my...
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll see if you're as much of a tzaddik as Rav Safra. Okay, so this is the story of Rav Safra has a donkey. I won't read all the Hebrew, but he has a donkey and he wants to sell it. And a man comes, he has a donkey, and a man comes over to him and says, "I'd like to buy the donkey." But Rav Safra was busy at that very moment saying Kriyat Shema. He was saying the Shema. And he doesn't respond to the potential buyer. So the potential buyer, what is he thinking? He's thinking, he wants a higher price, so he offers a higher price. But again, no response from Rav Safra until Rav Safra concludes his reading of the Shema. And then Rav Safra says to this potential buyer, he says, he says, from the first time that you said, the first price that you gave me, even though I was busy reciting the Shema, I concluded that was a fair deal. Okay? So even, what did it say in Tehillim, in the Psalms, the Dover, and that that Rabbi Safra had concluded that this was a fair price, that he spoke the truth in his heart, he agreed to the price, and then at the conclusion of the story, he says, "I will not take any more money than you offered me in the first round. Even though you upped the price a couple of times, I'm not going to take any more money." So that's the story of Rav Safra, and I think that's relevant to our rabbis of today. So one thing that you might say, though, about Rav Safra, it's possible to say that he's a great rabbi, he was a tzaddik, But I think that there's another point that this Mishnah is trying to tell us. I think that the story in the Talmud is trying to tell us that it's possible that Rav Safra was a tzaddik, but he was also a merchant, and that his reputation of honesty was important, and that he set an example. Okay, he didn't set an example in this case as the rabbi. He set an example as a merchant that has to deal with people in the shuk, in the marketplace all the time. So, talking about the shuk, that's our next Mishnah. The Mishnah is, it says, "Ein ma'arvin peirot b'peirot, afilu chadashim b'chadashim." We don't mix different kinds of fruits together. Even if it's the same fruit, we don't put like the newer fruits on top of the older fruits or the spoiled fruits. Now I think that all of us here in Israel, at least, if we go to Machane Yehuda, that we can relate to this where the beautiful cherries or the beautiful strawberries are on the top, but when they scoop up, the merchant scoops up the strawberries, somehow we get the ones that were hanging around for the last day or two. So this is what the Mishnah tells us, that we shouldn't mix new fruits with old fruits, and it even goes on to say, "Ein ma'arvin shimrei yayin v'yayin." Maybe there is a preservative that you're supposed to, that you're selling wine, that there may be a preservative or an additive that one puts in the wine. You can't mix that in as well. You can't mix water with wine, okay? Which may have been the practice in certain places and not in others. But if you're selling a bottle of wine, you shouldn't dilute it, is the point. Okay, you don't mix old fruits with new fruits, you don't mix different types of fruits, you don't mix, dilute your wine. Except, it's very interesting how this Mishnah ends. It says, "She'ino ela levamoto," but you shouldn't deceive somebody, but it says, "Makom shenehedu lahatir mayim v'yayim yatimu." Okay, meaning that if it was the custom, or if it is the custom in a particular place to dilute the wine, then that is then you're allowed to do that. However, you cannot deceive someone. So if you know someone's come from out of town to purchase this wine, you can't. You must tell him that the wine has been diluted. Okay? Another thing that's important is that this Mishnah does not mean that there's no room for negotiations, that business dealings are based on negotiations, and that you are certainly allowed to make a profit. And no one expects you to be a fool or to be naive. But on the other hand, you need to be honest. That's the point of this Mishnah. Okay. Let's go on a little bit more to the end of this this section, honesty in business negotiations. It says that you shouldn't lie or tell, you shouldn't steal or tell a lie against your neighbor. Okay. Now, what does that mean, that you shouldn't tell a lie against your neighbor? It means here that you shouldn't deceive someone. Okay. You shouldn't mislead someone. For example, if you know that someone's going to be away for a particular Shabbat, or you hear the person say, "Geez, I'm going to be away this Shabbat. I'm sorry, I'm going to miss Rabbi Safra's Devar Torah." Well, you can't then go over to this person and say, "Oh, I was going to invite you over to the house for Shabbat. Oh, it's a shame that you can't make it." Okay? When you really did not have the intention of inviting that person in the first place, but you heard he was going to be away, so you made it sound as if you really liked this person, you really wanted to have him over, and it just, because he's going to be away, that he can't come over. And the same is true in the instance of if you go into a store and you start asking the salesperson, how much does this cost, how much does that cost, and in the end, you really don't have any intention of buying. Okay? Now, of course, you can go into a store and window shop and you're allowed to look around, but if you really from the beginning had no intention of buying, but you're just asking and just make the person, the salesperson, to bother him, confuse him, then that's not fair. And that's considered the Motashak rule, ish ba'amito, not the telling a lie against your neighbor. Okay, so before we go on to the next section, which is Lashon Hara, anybody have any questions at this point or would like to become unmuted? Okay. All right, so we'll go on to Lashon Hara. This is a phrase that we're all familiar with, but I think it's worth that we take a stop for a moment and look at what does it mean. Lashon Hara could very well mean that we're telling the truth, okay? We could tell the truth about someone. But the question here comes in Lashon Hara, but what happens when the truth will harm someone? What happens when the truth will harm someone? That's the question before us. We know that we should tell the truth, okay? But what happens if the truth will harm someone? That's the question before us for Lashon Hara. Okay, so it says in the first text here under the evil tongue, Lashon Hara, do not gossip against your neighbors or stand idly by your neighbor's blood. Okay, we'll study a little bit what that means by standing idly by your neighbor's blood. But Lashon Hara is in another phrase to mean we should not gossip. Okay, this is taken from the book of Proverbs. Life and death are in the power of the tongue. That meaning that we may not be killing someone physically, but we could be killing someone's reputation, hurting someone's reputation by gossiping about that person. And we go on to the next line from the Talmud. It says, 3 people are killed by gossip: the teller, the person who hears, and the person about whom they are talking. So we see that the rabbis, that the consequences of Lashon Hara are unpredictable. The fact that someone is telling the truth does not mean that it's not Lashon Hara. Okay, we know that there's the story, the Talmudic story, where the rabbi, where someone goes over to the rabbi and he says, I said something about someone, I gossiped, I said Lashon Hara, and I'd really like to take that back. Sort of like today, if you send an email, but you send it out, you hit send, but you really didn't mean to send that email out. How do you retrieve that? How do you get it back? Well, the end of the story with the rabbi, when the person goes over to him and says, I said something, I'd really like to take it back, the rabbi says, I'd like you to take a pillow with feathers inside the pillow and cut it open. So the fellow cuts open the pillow, and out fly all the feathers. It's windy, and the feathers fly all around. So now the rabbi says to the gentleman, he says, now pick up all the flowers and put them back in the pillow. And the guy says, of course, that's impossible. I can't do that. He says, that's exactly the issue of Lashon Hara, that you may, once it comes out of your mouth, the power of life and death are in the tongue. That 3 people are killed, the teller, the person who hears, and the person about whom they are talking. So again, the consequences of Lashon Hara are unpredictable. And speaking the truth, this is the point that I sort of want to build on. Before we talked about being honest and your personal integrity, honesty in business negotiations, but now maybe telling the truth is not always the best thing, okay? So suppose a person is considering going into a business with someone who has a bad reputation, but the person who's considering going into business doesn't know that. Should we tell that person, or should we not tell that person? Or let me raise another issue. A couple is engaged, and you know that one of the members of the couple, either he or she, has a history of mental illness. You suspect, you don't know for sure, but you suspect that the person who is going to marry the other partner does not know of the past history of the person, the mental illness. So the question is, should you say something or should you not say something? And if you did say something, would that change the matter? And if it does change the matter, would it make the situation worse or would it make it better? So Lashon Hara has many implications. There's a story, O. Henry story called, I don't think it's called Jimmy Valentine, but the person in the main character in the story is Jimmy Valentine. And he has a history of being a bank robber. And in this particular situation, the question is, should he save the person's life by opening the safe? He was a safe cracker, and he could save a person's life by opening the safe. But he would give away his former occupation. So does he open the safe or does he not open the safe? Okay? I suggest that you read the story. It's a great O. Henry story about whether Jimmy Valentine opens the safe or not. Perhaps someone would like to unmute and to comment. Please feel free to do so now. And if you've read the story, then you can let us know. Okay. Okay, so we're going to go on now. So we've covered 3 topics: personal integrity, honesty in business negotiations, and now Lashon Hara, the evil tongue. And now we're up to lying and pikuach nefesh. Okay? If someone's life is going to be, if we can save someone's life by lying, should we lie or should we not? That is the question. Okay. So let me open by asking a hypothetical question. Thank God we don't have to live through this situation, but if we go back not too many years in our history to the time of the Holocaust, put yourself in this position. A Nazi patrol is walking by and comes over to you and he says, "Are there any Jews here?" If you answer honestly, then certainly the Jews will be killed. And possibly your neighbor who may be hiding those Jews would be killed. And even worse, perhaps you would be killed. I don't know if that's worse, or even more so. You would be killed because you were involved, you were an accomplice to the hiding of the Jews. So put yourself in that situation. In other words, if you lie, you can prevent the murders. But if you don't lie, you cannot prevent the murders. Did I say that correctly? Okay, in other words, you cannot prevent the murders without lying. So what do you do? What do you do? Okay, let's look at the sources in front of us. So the first source that I found is a quote by St. Augustine. I don't know who he is, but he said in the 4th century, "Since eternal life is lost by lying, a lie may never be told for the preservation of the temporal life of another." In other words, you're on this earth for ad mea ve'esrim, until 120 years, and you shouldn't tell a lie because that will stop you from going into olam haba. So that's the St. Augustine's perspective. But we have a different source. We have a source, right, a higher source. And these are 2 quotes from the Bible. The first, I think they're both very interesting. This is from the book of Shemot, from the book of Exodus, the story of the midwives who do not follow Paro's command to kill the firstborn. ותאמרנה המיודעות אל פרעה, כי מוך הנשים המצריות העבריות, כי חיות הנה, בטרם תבוא עליהן המיונדת וילדו. Okay, we know that the midwives did not follow, as I said, did not throw the firstborn males or the males into the sea, but they let them live. But the interesting thing is God's response to this. In other words, the midwives were not did not live up to the decree of Paro. But what does God say? That God was happy with that. God was very pleased with what the midwives did. They didn't follow the decree. Therefore, what is God saying to us? That life is more important than following a decree of someone or of telling the truth. In other words, they didn't kill the firstborn, and they said to Pharaoh that these Jewish women give birth so quickly, we can't get there in time. Before we can get there, they've already given birth. Okay, that wasn't the truth, but God says it's a good thing. I'm going to let you, I know that's a lie, but I'm going to let that go. And then we have the story in the book of Joshua, where there's this woman, Rachav, who takes in the spies that Joshua sent to Jericho, and the king finds out that they were spies. But and he goes to Rachav, and this is what she says. But tikach ha'isha et shnei ha'anashim v'titzpenehu. Okay, v'titzpeno. She hides the two spies. Vatomer came ba'u'elai, and she says to the king, yes, they were here, but I don't know where they are now. The ha'anashim lo yadati me'ayin. They were here, but I don't know where they are now. They must have taken off. It's sort of like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, you know? There were two, they were hiding, but I don't know where they are, but the posse was after them. But Rachav definitely knew where they were, but she lied. Okay, so okay? So Judaism clearly here, I think these are just two examples, but you can clearly see here that Judaism places a higher value on life than it does on telling the truth. And there are, but this is not related to telling a lie or telling the truth, but there are three exceptions. There are three exceptions to doing something that, even though we place the highest value in life, there are three times where that is not the case. When one murder, where you were asked, when someone says, either kill that person or I will kill you, you should not murder. Avodah zarah, if you're asked to perform idol worship of one kind or another, or incense, those three examples are exceptions to the value, the Jewish value of life takes precedence over anything else. Okay, we can move on to lying to the dying. This is, if you remember, I started by saying that I work with the elderly, and how do we relate to the elderly? How honest, how truthful do we have to be? Is there an ethical dilemma sometimes that we face by telling a lie or telling the truth, or how do we tell the truth? And we'll get to some of those questions right now. So I'll ask the question, can a lie be told to resolve an ethical dilemma? May a doctor lie to a patient who has been diagnosed with a fatal disease if the doctor believes that it is in the best interest of the patient? Okay, again, we're not saying that the doctor should go ahead and lie, but the doctor has now made an evaluation that it may be in the best interest of the patient to lie. Because if knowing the full truth could upset the patient so much that it could cause possible emotional distress and actually worsen the patient's overall condition. So that's the question before us. And now let's see what the what our sources have to say. Okay? So, chomesh shemet romet. Someone is ill doesn't mean that he's going to die tomorrow, but someone is ill, and a close relative of his, a friend, it could be, God forbid, a child, a wife, a parent, someone next to him dies, or close to him dies, ein modi'inoto. We don't tell him. We don't tell him. Shema titaref da'ato, that he would go crazy. He would be emotionally so upset by hearing this news that we don't inform him of, this is in the Shulchan Aruch, by the way, that we don't inform him. Yeah.
Actually, I'm an example of that. My late grandfather died a week before I was born. My mother was in hospital with all sorts of other things wrong before she gave birth to me. And I always remember my parents telling this story that she was complaining to my father that, why wasn't he coming along on time to see her in hospital and everything else. He was teaching them. They're going to Shema. They didn't tell her that her father had died. And she only found out after she gave birth to me and recovered. So,
And she recovered after she gave birth to you.
let's not go into that because I don't want to start telling any lies.
Okay.
Seriously,
So that's it. No, but that's exactly okay. And I heard a story. I heard a story of someone, an elderly person who was ill. I don't remember exactly what the situation was, and was given only several months to live. And it turned out that her son, who did not live in the same area, I think one of either the parent or the son made Aliyah. So someone's living in Argentina, and the other person is living in Israel. But the person, like say the son, called the mother every week. Okay? So what's the story? That she was old, and the doctor said that she's going to die just in a few weeks, and you shouldn't tell her. Okay? You shouldn't tell her that the son is sick and he's going to die. What happens? Okay? That they both live for a extended period of time, not within a short period of time, but they didn't communicate because one was afraid to tell the other that this one is sick and won't be to tell the other one. So that's a story that I heard, and so this is exactly the question: do we say something or not? So in the Shulchan Aruch it says we don't, and it goes on further to say ve'ein korin chavuko. In other words, you don't do kriyah, and we don't cry before him, and we don't say the hesped, a eulogy. We don't say, oh, he was a wonderful person and he died, because we don't want the person who is sick to hear this bad news. Why? Shemo yishaver libo, that his heart should not be broken. It should not cause emotional distress. Okay? And we go on to the next Shulchan Aruch, the next text, and it says, if someone is on his deathbed, the Teimamut, he's on his deathbed and he is goses, how do you say goses? He's dying, okay? He should say the confessional. He should say the confessional, but when you speak to him, you don't say, by the way, you're going to die tomorrow, you better say the confessional now, and by the way, would you like to sell me your tickets to the Mets game or to the Washington Nationals game? Okay? You say to him that many people have said the confessional, but they didn't die. They kept on living. And you say exactly the opposite. And some people though didn't say the confessional, and they did die. So it's better that you say the confessional. Okay? Basically, you want to be gentle. You don't want to. You ask the person to recite the confessional, the vidui, but you want to be gentle and leave room for hope. But there are implications in not telling the full truth, and I think that they need to be explored a little bit at this time. So I'll just ask some trigger questions. Are there medical alternatives? Okay, maybe the person is dying, but there may be alternative medical ways of dealing with the situation. There's some things that the doctor may not know, and that is, does the patient have business dealings that he or she needs to attend to? And by not telling the truth, the patient cannot put them in order. Okay? Things that need to be done. Perhaps the patient has family matters that he has to deal with. Maybe he hasn't spoken to his brother for the last 10 years or 20 years, and now when the moment comes where he, if he knew the truth, he might say something to his brother to finally bring them together again. So does the doctor need to say the truth, tell the truth, or not? Or let's ask a question in a different way. Will the patient lose trust in the physician if he suspects that his doctor is not being totally honest? Or we could ask the question in the opposite way. Will the patient lose confidence in his physician if he gets the sense that he's giving up? So how does a physician deal with this? We don't have any physicians sitting amongst us here in Ya'ar Ramot, but maybe there's a physician with you in Rockville that might would like to comment. So let me stop here for a second, and then when we'd like to unmute.
I had a comment.
Okay, we're still
I'm not in a
connected.
position, but I had a comment.
Vicky, are we here?
Yeah, do you hear me? Do you hear me? Wait a minute. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, he's talking. He's not. He's
Oh, wait, you're muted.
He's muted.
Okay. You hear me, Nikki? You hear me?
I hear you. Do you hear me? And I think Wayne was.
We can't hear you.
Oh, wait, what's this? Is that anything?
No.
Maybe here. How about now?
No.
Do you hear me now?
Okay. We don't hear you, and we don't know why.
Oh.
I hear you, Mickey. This is Judy. I can hear you.
They can hear us.
You can hear us, but wave your hands if you can hear us.
Well, here. I mean, Judy just told me
Okay,
that she hears me
but
too, and we
We
definitely
cannot
hear
hear
you.
you.
I
We cannot hear you. And it says, talking Ya'ar Ramot.
No.
Okay, you can hear us. Okay, so I'll just go on. But
I wanted to
for
ask a
whatever
question.
reason, we
I
cannot hear
wanted
you.
to ask a question.
Yeah, he's talking.
Do you hear me now?
Phone center. Okay. Yeah, but we can't hear. Okay, we cannot hear you.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Let me see if I can.
I can hear. Aliyah is saying that she can hear everyone.
So you are there somehow. You are the organizer, and it's on your end.
Okay, give us a minute here.
Speakers on. It was working just before.
Right, we
So just
I can hear everyone. It's on your end in Israel. Yeah, right.
7:30.
No, that's fine. That's all in there, fine. We hear it on this. That's strange. No explanation. I don't want to switch this off and go on to the...
So, I think 40.
What was that?
No. We just turn around there. Understand this.
We will deal with it.
Okay, we seem to have lost you.
I shouldn't have done this in the first
You
place.
seem to be permanently muted.
We'll just have to pay for a Catholic wedding. So, I think we've been very...
So
Everything is green here,
Does it say that I'm muted, or is it just that you don't hear me?
but we can't figure it out.
Yeah.
To be honest, so many people do.
Okay, so should I just, give me a thumbs up if I should just go on?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
What?
Tell him we just can't hear it.
We can't hear you, but obviously you're all, can hear each other. So whatever happened here. Okay. So I'll just go on. And now, oh, wait.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was going to type it, but it's a long question. The pieces that you're talking about are really what are the situations when a person might want to lie. But you've also sort of sidestepped that the actual lie is not the same in all of these cases. So so there's a difference between a lie by telling the not truth and a lie by omission. So giving your example of the Egyptian women, they didn't really lie. The lie would have been, did you kill these children? And yet the answer would be yes. They sort of said, well, it might have been a lie, it might not. Or the case of the person who is on the deathbed, the one you're talking about right now, you can address the issues of I don't want to hurt his feelings and I want to make sure he's talked to his, he's made his arrangements and he's talked to his friends without lying in a straight sense by saying, you know, you're very sick, you might want to do some of these things. You haven't addressed the, can I skirt the truth, and is skirting the truth the same as a lie? Which is not the same question as, you know, is there a situation when I want to lie?
Okay, excellent question, excellent question. And let's go to the next source, okay? Where it's from the book of Bereshit, and it says, lying to preserve the peace. Okay, so I think that this will answer your question. So the pasuk is, this is the story of Abraham and Sarah, where God says to Sarah that she's going to give birth to a son who will be called Isaac. But Yitzchak Sarah b'kirba lemor acharai b'moti hayatami edna v'adoni zakein. She is laughing in her heart. Why is she laughing? Because she says, how can I give birth to a child? I've already gone through menopause. I'm 90 years old. And then she adds, Vadoni Zaken. Okay, my husband's an old man. But then, when God speaks to Abraham, this is the following verse. He says, Vayomer Adonai el Abraham, Lama zeh tzachaka Sarah. Why did Sarah laughing? Why was she laughing? She says, I've already gone through menopause and I'm an old woman. What did he omit? What did he omit? He omitted that, so God himself now omits that Allah actually said, and my husband's an old man. Like, you know, we're not going to have any children. What's going on here? Okay? And then the Midrash, immediately afterwards, in the next text, says exactly that. Right? This is the story of, this is the Midrash. And why did God not tell Abraham directly that, what exactly the words that Sarah had said? It says, V'hatil shalom bein Abraham and Sarah. For shalom bayit. He didn't want Abraham to say, to hear from Sarah, that she said that he was an old man. So we see here that even here God doesn't directly lie, but he skirts the truth in some way by omitting exactly what Sarah had to say. Okay, which takes us to the next source. This is a famous story where the rabbis have a dispute. The Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel have a dispute of Ketzad Mirakim Nifnei HaKala. The Kala is sitting in the circle, and how do we, what do we say about the Kala? Okay? It says Kala Kamot Shehi. You know, Beit Hillel, Beit Shammai says we have to be honest. We have to say directly what we think of the Kala, of the bride. Beit Hillel says, no, we have to say that she's na'eva chasuda, that she's beautiful, that she's righteous, and so on. But then Beit Shammai says to Beit Hillel, wait, what happens if she's blind, or what happens if she had some deformity of some kind? Can we say that she's beautiful and she's gracious? And the Torah says that midaber sheker tirchak, that we have to tell the truth. We can't tell a lie. So Beit Hillel then responds to Beit Shammai and says, Misha makach mekach ra min hashuk, yishabchenu be'inav o yiganehu be'inav. This is an interesting question that Beit Hillel says to Beit Shammai. They say, what happens if someone bought a scarf, or bought in the shuk, he bought a painting, okay? And the guy says, oh, this is a beautiful painting. Look at the tablecloth that I bought. Look at the painting that I bought. Look at this scarf that I bought that I want to give to my wife. But you look at it and you say, oh, this is such a cheap material, that this is chalushus. It's disgusting looking. It's horrible. How could he ever think of giving this to his wife? But he already bought it. You're not going to change anything, okay? If you're giving him advice before the sale, that's one thing. But after he bought it, what do? You're going to say this is an ugly purchase? How could you buy such a thing and you paid that much money? So what did the Chachamim say? The Chachamim say, Yishabchenu be'einav. You should say, well, that's a nice thing that you bought. Okay? In other words, you don't want to hurt his feelings. It's shalom bayit. You want to preserve the peace. Okay? Which brings us to the next story. The story of we'll skip one text and we'll go to the story of Hillel and Shammai, where it's written in English. Hillel and Shammai received the tradition from Aharon, being like Aharon, loving peace and pursuing peace. Okay? That we should, we know the story of Aharon, the brother of Moshe. We know the story that Aharon would go to one person and say that your neighbor apologizes and he admits that he was wrong and he's sorry for what he did. And then he goes to the other one and says exactly the same thing. That you're the guy that you haven't spoken to for the last week, he's really sorry and he'd like to make up and be friends. So the two of them get together and they hug and they kiss and they make up, and that's wonderful, it's great. But what happens if one says to the other, I am so glad that you admitted that you made a mistake, and it's so glad that you apologized, okay? Could the fight start again? Okay? So although we want to admire Aharon for preserving the peace, right, for shalom bayit, we don't want the fight to start again. It reminds, we've all seen Fiddler on the Roof. There was a horse, it was a mule, it was a horse, it was a mule, that they made up, but underlying there's still this feeling of animosity. So we do want to preserve the peace. But, okay, we're getting to the end of the text. I think we still have a few more minutes to go. And there are a couple more stories. Okay. This I also found it very, very interesting. That the rabbis tell us that a learned scholar is permitted to lie. Of course, we're talking about when not testifying in court. We already went through that. When you're testifying in court, you must tell the truth. But a scholar is allowed to lie in 3 cases. In tractate, right, and it says in Masechet, okay, in bed, okay, and in hospitality, okay? What does it mean in tractate? That if a guy is a learned scholar, someone's a real scholar, but he's modest, he doesn't want to tell everybody about it. So he's allowed to say, yes, I've studied Talmud, yes, I'm a doctor, but he doesn't have to go and say, I'm a world-famous surgeon, Mr. Know-it-all, I know everything, I can read I know the Talmud forwards and backwards. Other people might say that about him. But he's allowed to be modest. So remember that modesty is also an important value and that you are permitted to lie in that case. The situation is in bed. The next case is in bed. But not everybody needs to know your private life. Not everybody needs to know everything about you. There are things that are between you and your spouse, you and a close friend, that you don't have to share with others. And the third is hospitality. What does that mean, hospitality? It means that you shouldn't go around saying, oh, this person is so generous, why don't you just go over, you can go to their house anytime and they'll put you up and they'll give you a great meal. In other words, you don't want to take advantage.
Uh-oh.
We just freeze?
I've got frozen.
Yep. Just send him an email.
I don't hear it anymore either.
Oh, wait. Oh, no.
It says talking YAR remote on the top, but obviously we can't.
Yeah, no, he's definitely talking. He was in mid-sentence there.
Whoops.
Wait, now we just lost him? Wait a minute.
Yep, gone all together.
He just went off. Okay. Looks like Wayne just got frozen also.
I can hear.
Okay.
I can hear you. I can't hear Israel.
Yeah, I think he just...
Mickey, this is Wayne. I can hear you fine.
I know, but I can't teach his class. I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to dismiss him. We're going to be done in 3 minutes anyway. I'm going to dismiss him and hope that will make him come back on. All right, it looks like some people are having to leave anyway because the timing is up. I'm really sorry. Just going to see if it comes on in 1 second, but it might be that we're going to be. I hope we got most of the purpose here. Because I believe he was really down to the very end. Well, the second to the end.
I think they're back, maybe.
Yeah,
Okay, we're back.
Sorry
Hey,
about that.
sorry about that. Okay.
Okay.
So you're
All right,
back,
so-
but we're running near the end, so we'll try to
Right.
wrap. But.
Let me just go to the very last source. This is a story that I like very much. It's a story of a rabbi and his wife do not get along so well. And he one day asks his wife for chicken soup, and she makes him vegetable soup because she doesn't like him and she doesn't do what he likes. So next time he says, can I have some vegetable soup? And she makes him chicken soup. And she never makes him the soup that he likes. What? But the son is a wise fellow, and he picks up on this. He picks up on this. So one day the father says to his son, can you tell mom that I want chicken soup? And when he goes to his mother, and she says, and he says to her, Dad wants vegetable soup. And she makes him vegetable soup. I'm sorry, right? She makes him chicken soup. So the father is very happy because he got the chicken soup that he wanted. And the next day he says, can I have some vegetable soup? And the son says, Dad wants chicken soup. And the mother makes vegetable soup. And this is going on for a week after a period of time. And finally, the father catches on to what the son is doing. And the father says to the son, I admire what you're doing. That's very nice what you're doing. But once you start telling a lie, once you start telling a lie, you get on a slippery slope. That you have to be very careful that you should not tell a lie, because one lie could lead to another, And the final source here, and I won't go through that in its entirety, but we know that, what do we say at the end of the Amidah? It says, "Netzor l'shon chameirah," that we should keep lies from our lips, that we should not, that we should be honest in our business dealing, personal integrity. But the question is up for grabs, perhaps at another time. On behalf of everyone here, we'd like to thank you for your attention. We're sorry for the technical difficulties. And just a last personal word, I'm looking forward to coming to B'nai Israel a few days before Rosh Hashanah. Rabbi Safar and I will work out the exact timing and hopefully meet you personally. So I'd like to wish everyone Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach. And Mickey, would you like to close off and say a few words, please?
Well, I will say Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach as well, and thank you to everybody for participating. If people want to, now it's kind of late, so anybody who has to leave certainly shouldn't feel bad about that. But if anybody still wants to ask a question, I want to give the opportunity. Last time all the questions seemed to come out after we finished, right?
Right. I'd like to, one message of Zionism, if I may, that we only, as you know, only observe one day of Shavuot. So we only have, we only have to deal with Shabbat and Sunday. You have to deal with Shabbat, Sunday, and Monday. So that may be an impetus, an incentive for you to make Aliyah, and we'll close on that note.
And for the rabbis who are writing 3 sermons this weekend instead of 2, yeah.
Very good. Very good. Okay, Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach, and we look forward to future opportunities to study dialogue together.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, thank you. Okay, you're welcome to hold on to the